Welcome. Greetings of peace, joy, love. I'm Reverend Cardona. I'm here with Reverend Lisa Benton, Goddi Lisa. Together, we are presenting a little extra twist to Miracles with a Twist on the third Thursday of every month. Goddi Lisa joins me on this broadcast to discuss a mystic that she has found interesting and helpful on her spiritual path. And we look at how there's a correlation to A Course in Miracles, because we believe A Course in Miracles is a mystic's path as well.
Absolutely.
And so, Goddi Lisa, hello, good to see you.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here.
Great.
I'm just going to get us kind of situated here with our little bell so we know we're starting.
Great. And so now with that, why don't we take a nice deep breath in together? Exhale into our hearts. That bell is our call to gathering. And our hearts are the remembrance of our brotherhood, sisterhood, our unity on this path. Wherever we go, whoever we see, whatever we do, we have the opportunity to walk as a mystic walks, to see the potential for blessing, to see the opportunities to show love, and to practice the deep connection to our divine so that we remain open to guidance, wisdom, the commitment we've made to pray harder, rise higher, love steadily, forgive readily. We embody that commitment, that task, that opportunity. Together we move into this time of gratitude for being able to connect heart to heart, soul to soul. We give thanks for A Course in Miracles. We give thanks for the angels and saints that surround us. We give thanks to our ancestors who paved a way for us. And we give thanks to all the mystics who set an example from all religions and all generations of what it means to be truly connected to the divine as a way of life. And we give thanks for that, and we give thanks for this moment, and we take another nice deep breath in. And we exhale and find ourselves connected, grounded, and in gratitude. Hello, Goddi Lisa.
Hello, here I am again.
Who do you have for us today?
I have for us today a great guy, Thomas Merton, and I will talk about him in a little while. First, what I'd like to do, and thank you very much for that opening prayer and meditation. It was very beautiful because it really nails how we feel about mysticism and the mystics. And so because it's so vast and personal, we have created our definition so that for the purposes of this video and for our mystic conversations, because people can think of all different kinds of things. And so for our purposes, this is our definition that we will be using as a mystic. We believe that a mystic is someone who finds themselves in an ecstatic state of spiritual consciousness and connection to the divine. They come from all walks of life and religious backgrounds, and sometimes no religion at all. We also believe that a mystic is someone who seeks the divine connection on a regular basis and incorporates spirituality into every aspect of their life. And that's kind of key there. So yeah, that's the tricky part.
Well, it may be the tricky part, but at the same time, we're finding out that mystics are just regular folks.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's so neat.
There are times when we falter, we're only human, and I love, there's a part in A Course in Miracles in the CE edition where Jesus says, the only difference between me and you is that I don't want anything else anymore. And I think that's what we want to strive for. So I don't want anything else other than to come from a place of love and kindness and peace, and inner peace. And how do we find that? I wanted to pick up a little bit from where we left off last time we spoke when we did our last talk on Julian of Norwich. We were talking about the religious idea of sinning versus the mystic and the metaphysical concept and the course definition, which is that we make mistakes that are in need of correction. And when we raise our consciousness and we get responsible for what we do, then we make those corrections and we move forward from there. And so I was thinking about how inner peace brings us happiness. And when we're feeling joyful, when we're feeling inner peace and we're feeling happy, we can then interact with the world with less adversarial mindset. You know, if you're in a bad mood or you're just seeing things from a negative perspective and you're thinking poorly of people, it's hard to feel our heart. It's hard to see the goodness of their heart and to connect from the goodness of our own heart. So I started thinking about happiness and how God's will for us is happiness. And it just turns out that one of the lessons in A Course in Miracles in the workbook says, it's lesson 101. It says, God's will for me is perfect happiness. This is a key idea in understanding what salvation means. You may believe that suffering is penance for your sin, but this is not so. The idea is that we move out of the concept of being bad, or even of the concept of someone else being bad. That salvation is a complete and total shift of consciousness. That we start seeing the potential for unity and non-duality in our lives and with others. And that whatever suffering is upon us for whatever reason, whatever suffering is in the world, is still an opportunity for alchemy of the soul, for us to move out of this identification as the sufferer. And I have a quote by Paramahansa Yogananda, who you know I love as a teacher. Mm-hmm. He said, you will again and again sink to your knees in a mud of suffering that is of your own making until you realize that neither good fortune nor evil fortune is real, that God alone is real. Then all earthly delusions will pass away. So when we get to the point in our lives when we're not so attached to what's going on out there, or even what we might temporarily have conflicted in here, you know, that we see that there's a higher vision, a divine mind that we can connect to. So it just so happens that as I was preparing a lesson based on lesson 101 in A Course in Miracles, God's will for us is perfect happiness, I decided to go to the Darshan Center for Spiritual Evolution on Sunday evening. They have their services. It's an interfaith service that is facilitated by our beloved Reverend Grace Telesco and her spouse, Sister Chris Drum. So they often have guest speakers. I've been there myself. And the night on Sunday night, they had Bev Spivey, who's a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours. And she's a wonderful spiritual leader and teacher, a licensed unity teacher. And guess what her topic was?
Happiness.
Yes. I was like, wow, this is perfect. What perfect timing is this? So I wanted to give a little credit where credit's due and quote her a bit. I told her the other night, I said, well, I think I'm going to plagiarize you. And I said, no, I'll make sure to quote you because I had some really nice takeaways. So once again, Darshan Center for Spiritual Evolution, Reverend Grace Teleso and Sister Chris Drum, and your guest speaker was Bev Spivey. And she talked about making that connection to the divine mind and the importance of us really recognizing that happiness was given to us. It's a gift. It's not as if we have to go in search of it. What we have to do is remove whatever it is we think are obstacles to our happiness, whatever it is we've decided is the thing that's keeping us from being happy. And so she said, you have to learn to be the CEO of your own mind. You know, you're in charge of what comes in. You're in charge of what you allow to stay there. And the other sort of metaphor she used was, it's like being a bouncer, be the bouncer at the door. You know, you've let in some stuff, but you're not letting in any of the other stuff. So you get to be the bouncer. You get to say, oh, no, that's enough. You know, I'm going to entertain you for just a moment, but that's it. You got to go. You know, and then she used some sports metaphor, and, you know, I'm not quite sure about sports, but it was an umpire thing. Like, You decide when when you get struck out, that's enough. That's enough. I've let a couple of negative concepts in, and that's it. I am the CEO of this mind, and I will be the bouncer of the negative thoughts that I do not want to entertain, because we do get to choose how much we're going to entertain. And at some point, we have to develop that discipline, the discipline within us to say, okay, that's enough. And then Sister Chris talked about how happiness is a revolutionary act. We're so accustomed to getting in our upset, getting in our judgment, getting into adversarial relationships where, I want to argue with you, or I want to argue politics, or whatever it is. She said the mandate, which I thought was an interesting word she used, the mandate from on high is our happiness.
Here we go.
And how in line that was with A Course in Miracles, that tells us God's will for me is perfect happiness. And anything that I entertain that takes me away from that will keep me from feeling connected from my heart. So it's actually a wise decision to focus on our own happiness, to focus on what it is that's keeping us from our upset. Now, you and I met earlier today, and we had some technical glitches. We had some upsets. It was like, again, like, what is keeping us from making this happen? And so we decided to sing. We said, let's just raise, if God's will for me is perfect happiness, what's going to make me get there in this moment of upset? And we just broke into song. We had a great time, and it was fun. And of course, it reminded me of our beloved Pam, who actually had sent me a text just like 6 months before she passed. And it was about the technical glitches, because it seemed like every single week there was something, and I was like, And so she said, I had this thought: when the technical glitches happen in class, perhaps it's a perfect example of how the noise of the ego and the world tries to interfere with our ability to hear the voice of spirit. It's a great reminder to us, to all of us in that moment, to listen more carefully, to be more quiet. I know. Our beloved. She got it, she really did. She practiced the Course, she lived the Course, and she often became my teacher. She gave me so much wise counsel. And I appreciated that so much, because on days like today and mornings like you and I had, it's great to remember that at another time, perhaps we would have just been really upset and used that to, go out into the world with our upset, instead of taking the time to take responsibility for what's going on in here. I want to be the CEO of my mind. I want to be the bouncer at the door. I want to know that at the end of the day, I did my best to rise higher, and to allow the connection of my heart to the divine to open in such a way that I can now connect with others, that I can see the light, the love, the beauty in everyone else's heart. So I'm going to end with this, and I'm going to pass it to you. This is at the end of the lesson 101 that says, God's will for me is perfect happiness. It said, give just 5 minutes gladly to remove the heavy load you lay upon yourself and the insane belief that sin is real. Today, escape from the madness. You are set on freedom's road. And now this idea brings wings to speed you on, and hope to go still even further and faster to the waiting goal of peace.
Beautiful.
Inner peace, perfect peace. God's will for me, God's will for you is perfect happiness.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm going to introduce us to Thomas Merton. And Thomas Merton was a Trappist monk who was born in 1914, and he was also a poet, a writer. He liked to paint. He was just quite talented. And he was, like I said, born in 1914, and his mom died their lifestyle was very bohemian. His mom was a painter and a dancer. His dad was a painter, and when he was 5 years old, his mom passed away. And then, so his dad kind of took him places all over the world and kind of painted wherever he wanted to paint, and then would come back to the US and paint in different states and stuff, and then leave him with a relative or whatever, and just go on without him. And but that is the way he kind of grew up. And then his dad died when he was 16. So he was kind of on his own, but also pretty much used to kind of being on his own, or going with the flow. And so he made his way with ups and downs, just like everybody else. He had suffered from depression, and he had his reckless times, and he had his prayerful times, and he had his, just his completely unsure of everything times. But he somehow made it to Cambridge and Columbia. And so here he was living in New York City, and he gets an apartment with a bunch of students and teachers and stuff. So he's opened up to this world where there's just he had friends, for one thing. He didn't know what it was like to have friends, and so he really didn't quite know how to handle it. So, like I said, he kind of got involved with certain things. He ticked off some teachers and professors, and they ticked him off, and all this. And but in essence, he's a guy just trying to find his way, and he always wanted to figure out, what is my purpose. And so ultimately, he ended up in Louisville, Kentucky, which was kind of interesting. And that was in, 1941, at the age of 27. He's in Louisville, Kentucky, in what? Not a college, but a monastery, a Trappist monastery. And that's quite different from kind of the things that he had been up to before, but it was something that he wanted. He was feeling this call from God, who he really didn't know. And then he was called to Catholicism, but he didn't really know. But he knew this was it. This is where he needed to be. And he went, and they took him, and they were happy to have him. And he was a great writer, and they loved that he wrote, and they made him director of novices, which he kind of didn't like and did like. He loved dealing with the novices, didn't like the work involved with it. And I'm sure as a teacher or anybody, as a parent or whatever, you don't like the work that goes into it. You like the results, So anyway, the name of the monastery that he was in the monastery of Gethsemane. And he ultimately had he wanted to live like a hermit. But that's not a monastic life. A monastic life is very isolated, but there's standards and do's and don'ts and things you have to do. But he, being who he was, and the writer that he was, and was able to kind of dazzle the abbot that didn't like him very much, and he didn't like very much. But they managed to find a peace, and he had his own little hut and on the property, and he wrote his memoir, or autobiography, I guess, at that age, young, in his 30s, at the request of the abbot. Nobody expected it to make real money, but the money was going to go to the abbot, and it was a big success. So that was a big deal for him. So, and for the abbey. And so he's just going along the best he can, annoying the abbot a little bit, and enjoying other things, and writing, and always writing, just writing books, journals, you name it. And one day he was out walking, doing errands at the corner of 4th and Walnut in Louisville, Kentucky. And he had a profound experience. And the best way that I can describe it is to read exactly what he wrote in his notes from a guilty bystander. That's the title of his book, which I love. And that was in 1958 that he did this, and he's standing there in the corner, not expecting anything, probably just waiting for a traffic light to turn or something, I don't know. But he said, in Louisville, at the corner of 4th and Walnut, in the center of the shopping district, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all those people, that they were mine and I theirs, that we could not be alien to one another, even though we were total strangers. It It was like waking from a dream of separateness and spurious self-isolation in a special world, the world of renunciation and supposed holiness. The whole illusion of a separate, holy existence is a dream. This sense of liberation from an illusory difference was such a relief and such a joy to me that I almost laughed out loud. I have the immense joy of being human, a member of a race in which God became incarnate. As if the sorrows and stupidities of the human condition could overwhelm me now that I realized what we all are. And if only everybody could realize this. But it cannot be explained. There is no way of telling people that they are all walking around shining like the sun. Then it was as if I suddenly saw the secret beauty of their hearts and the depths of their hearts, where neither sin nor desire nor self-knowledge can reach, the core of their reality, the person that each one is in God's eyes. If only they could see all themselves as they really are. If only we could see each other that way all the time, there would be no more war, no more hatred, no more cruelty, no more greed. Wow. And I just imagine what he described and to actually feel that oneness. And at that time, his thought process turned. He didn't turn into a different person. The way he saw things, and we see this in A Course in Miracles all the time. Help me to see things differently. He wasn't even asking. God just said, okay, time to see things differently. And he had been living in a monastery, a very strict monastery, Roman Catholic, believing fully that the only way to become one with God or close to God is to be isolated, that you need to be in prayer nonstop in isolation. And as we heard, in this, he was seeing everybody as him. And there's a quote that he said, not at the same time, but made me think, I thought of this when I read that, was, we do not find the meaning of life by ourselves alone. We find it with another. And so here he was, oh my goodness, everything I do, I've been saying all the prayers, I've been doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, but I have not been out in the world. I haven't had relationships and so forth and lived the real world. So he actually began to emerge himself within the confines of the monastery, as well as outside periodically with the blessing of the monastery, to expand what he knew, what he had picked up in his experience. We're all in this together. We can't be apart. So if we're apart, we're doing it, and we got to stop doing it. So he became, to me, he began the dialogue on interfaith and interfaith, particularly interfaith, because he became very attached to Buddhism and Hinduism and never detached from being a Trappist monk. And I find that amazing, that because it would be very easy for him to, once he had this awareness, to go, okay, I'm out of the monastery and I'm going to go be a writer and a millionaire and all that. It would have been easy for him. But that's not what he did. He was a Trappist monk, but he knew there was more to things than he had seen. And he became quite popular with his writings and stuff. And he had been asked, in fact, the Abbey asked him in December of 1968 to go to Thailand to this conference. And it was actually a Buddhist conference, because the Trappist monks are part of a Cistercian order. And the Cistercian order was looking to kind of expand its Benedictine section. So this was the perfect opportunity. They're like, let's send Merton. He loves to get out of here, and he writes great. And so they sent him to this conference on December 10th, 1968. He was scheduled to give a talk at the conference, and he did. And it was a beautiful conference. It's on YouTube. If anybody wants to see it, I can put a link in. But he became a little tired after his talk and decided to go back to his room and take a bath. And he didn't feel very well. And so he went to get out of the tub, and he slipped, and there was a pole lamp that he just instinctively grabbed, and sadly he was electrocuted and he died. Mm-hmm. And so here he was in the middle, or wherever, I shouldn't even say in the middle, he was where he was supposed to be, and had said what he was supposed to say, write what he was supposed to write. And to me, what I find is that he was always searching for this true self, which to me is like God's will for him. And he ultimately, before he passed, learned in his actions and in his words that being his authentic self, loving everybody, trying to do the best he could with what he had, was his true self. Mm-hmm. And so I think that leaves me hope for me, because let me tell you, I can goof up, I can, I think everything's going beautifully and be doing all the right things, and something hideous happens and I can go one way or the other. And just like you said, I can be the CEO, I can be the bouncer, or I can be the umpire. It's my choice. And I think for me, Merton really speaks so clearly about this. And there's so much that he has written in his journals and everything. It's all published. And anytime anybody wants to check into him further, I strongly recommend it, because you won't feel bad about yourself. You'll feel inspired, I believe.
Well, that's a great way for me to remind everyone that we will put links in the comments underneath this video. The cover of this video will be a picture of Thomas Merton, in case anyone doesn't recognize who he is. And also that beautiful quote that you read when he had that realization. I'd love that to go in the comments as well. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't it be great that as adults, when we reach adulthood, we're given these glasses, and then when we put them on, we see the secret beauty of every heart. Like we could just see past the facade, past the defensiveness and the armor, and just truly see the beauty of each person's heart. And that's what these paths allow us to do. That's what being a spiritual warrior, disciple, a mystic, being dedicated to being able to see with eyes of love. And Course in Miracles calls it Christ vision. And it sounds as though Thomas Merton achieved that. He achieved that ability to look and see the truth of who we all are, regardless of, whatever it is we're doing on a daily basis. We can be just out there living our lives with whatever uniform, whatever role we play, whatever type of job we have, and still we look and we see the truth, the beauty of each person's heart. And we do that by being the CEO of our mind, coming back to that place where we can find peace, inner peace, and joy and happiness, because God's will for us is perfect happiness. And the Course also says we don't go to heaven alone. We go with our brothers and sisters, and he instinctively knew that too, which is why he came out of his monastic solitude to interact with the world. And yes, it sounds as though he was an early day interfaith minister. Yes. So thank you for that. Next time we talk, we have an interesting presentation, because you are thinking about Moses. We have Moses, a Jewish scripture character who's going to be presented as a Jewish mystic. So I really look forward to that. That's on Thursday, March 21st.
Right.
So thank you so much for this introduction to Thomas Merton. There's lots more to learn about him. So why don't we end with a prayer that he himself gifted us with.
Absolutely. And this prayer is, although he didn't call it my prayer, it is attributed to him. It's like different prayers that are attributed to people. This is the Merton prayer that a lot of people refer to. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself, and the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I actually am doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may not know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone.
Amen to that.
Amen.
And blessed be. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Month, and we will move forward in peace, with vision of the beauty of each person's heart. We'll see the beauty and the joy and the love, and we'll come from love, we'll come from peace, and we'll come from fulfilling God's will for us, which is perfect happiness.
Absolutely.
So thank you. God bless you.